I was 27, living in Austin, Texas. Life was finally starting to make sense. I had just landed a promotion at the creative agency where I worked. I had a cozy apartment filled with sunlight and succulents. And I had Josh, my boyfriend of 3 years. He was charming, ambitious, and the kind of guy who made everyone laugh at dinner parties. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were solid. He'd met my dad. We were planning a trip to Italy that spring. I thought he might propose. Then, in the middle of all that good, came a pain I couldn't explain. First in my ribs, then my lower back, then night sweats and fatigue that made getting out of bed feel like climbing Everest. I went to the doctor thinking it was stress. Maybe anemia. Worst case scenario. Maybe mono. It was none of those. Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 2B. I still remember sitting in that cold exam room as the doctor explained the diagnosis. His voice sounded like static. My hands trembled. My first thought wasn't even about death. It was, how do I tell Josh? When I got home that night, I cooked his favorite, blackened salmon with couscous and avocado. I wanted to create the softest landing possible, but when I told him, he didn't cry. He didn't even look at me. He just said, wow, okay, and excused himself to go for a drive. That was the beginning of the end. Over the next 2 weeks, Josh began to vanish in pieces. He stopped sleeping over. He missed my first oncology consult. When I shaved my head, before the chemo started, he didn't come. He texted, thinking of you, and then ghosted for 2 days. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't want to. I told myself he was scared, overwhelmed, that maybe he didn't know how to cope. Until one morning, 2 days before my first treatment, I got an email. Not a text, not a call, an email. Hey, I'm really sorry, but I can't do this. I wish you all the best. No signature, no visit, just gone. Worse still, our shared savings account was empty. I'd been too tired to notice it before, but he'd quietly withdrawn everything. All the Italy money, all the emergency savings, every last dollar. My body was dying, and so was the last ounce of trust I had in anyone. I lay on the cold tile of my bathroom floor that night, bald, broke, and alone. The kind of alone that makes your bones ache. But somehow, even there, even in that darkness, which is a small part of me whispered, this is not where your story ends. I wish I could tell you that I bounced back, that I stood up from that bathroom floor with a fierce fire in my eyes ready to fight. But I didn't. I stayed there, for hours. Chemo started that Friday. It hit me like a freight train. My bones felt hollow. My mouth turned into sandpaper. Food had no taste, and my skin hurt to the touch. And worse than all of that, I was alone. No one to drive me home. No one to sit beside me in the chemo suite with warm socks and whispered encouragement. No one to hold my hand when the nausea hit like waves in a storm. I tried to call my father. We hadn't spoken much since Mum passed 5 years ago. He picked up, said he was sorry to hear, and asked if I needed anything. I asked him to come. He said he couldn't get time off work. That was the end of that conversation. So it became just me and the nurses. One nurse in particular, Ellie. She was different. Mid-50s with silver-streaked hair and a voice like crushed velvet. She noticed right away how quiet I was. One day, during the 3rd treatment, she sat down beside me and said, "You know, your heart's still beating. Don't forget that. That means your story is not over." I burst into tears, right there in that ugly beige chair with the IV in my arm. Ellie didn't ask me to be strong. She didn't feed me platitudes. She simply saw me. Over the next few months, Ellie became a lifeline. She'd slip me herbal candies for nausea, sneak in hot tea, and share stories about her daughters to distract me from the pain. She reminded me that kindness still existed, that even in the darkness, people could show up. And then there was Candace, my upstairs neighbor. I'd barely spoken to her before. But one day, she saw me struggling to carry groceries and just stepped in. From that moment, she was at my door nearly every day. Soup, movies, laundry help. She even shaved her head in solidarity. Said, "Hair's overrated anyway." Some nights we'd just sit in silence, wrapped in fuzzy blankets, watching old rom-coms, laughing, crying, living. Slowly, through their presence, I began to breathe again. And one night, I found my old journal from college, filled with quotes, ideas, doodles. At the back was a list titled, "Things I'll Do If I Survive." start my own company, visit Greece, dance in the rain, make peace with mom's death, forgive myself. I smiled at that last one. So I started writing again, pages and pages, about pain, about strength, about letting go. And then, as if life was testing me, I got a notification, an Instagram post. Josh, grinning with a new girlfriend on a beach in Mexico. The caption read, grateful to have someone who sticks with me through anything. Oh, like a blessed GS2 chapter. I felt something stir in my gut. Not anger, not jealousy, resolve. That was the night I decided I would not just survive. I would rebuild. Better, stronger, smarter. And one day, I would look in the mirror and not see a victim. I'd see a woman who rose from ash. Even if the world forgot me, I would not forget myself. Remission came faster than expected. 6 months after my last chemo session, the scans were clear. No trace of the cancer. The doctor said the words, "You're in remission." And I just sat there, numb, grateful, confused. Who was I now? I was no longer sick. But I wasn't the woman I was before. That version of me died the day Josh left, and in her place was someone new. I didn't rush back to work. The thought of sitting in a cubicle pretending to care about branding campaigns made me nauseous. Instead, I cashed in the last $200 in my emergency account and signed up for an online course in UX/UI design. I figured if I was going to rebuild my life, I might as well start with something that made sense. Something I could control. I spent the next 8 months in libraries, cafes, and my apartment, headphones in, eyes glued to tutorials. And you know what? I was good at it. Damn good. By the end of the year, I had a small portfolio, a list of clients from Fiverr and Upwork, and enough savings to finally launch what I dreamed about during chemo. My own design agency. I called it Ash Design Co. Because like a phoenix, I was building from the ashes. The business started small. Me and one other freelancer, then 2, then 5. Within 3 years we were hiring full-time staff. We worked out of a beautiful studio in East Austin. Exposed brick, huge windows, coffee brewing 24/7. We were known for bold, story-driven design. Our tagline, we design resilience. Because that's what I knew. That's what I lived. We built websites for nonprofits, ran campaigns for mental health orgs, and even helped other cancer survivors launch their dream projects. And then one morning, 4 years after Josh left me, I got an email, a resume, a portfolio, a request for a junior project manager position. The name on the email, Josh McAllister. I blinked. Read it again. It couldn't be. But it was. Same face in the profile picture. Same go-getter tone. Same man who emptied our account and vanished without a single goodbye. He was applying to my company, unaware I was the founder. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. And then, I smiled. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to scream or confront. But maybe, just maybe, I could teach him a lesson. The kind that doesn't need yelling. The kind that speaks in silence. So I forwarded his resume to my HR director with a note. Let's bring him in for an interview. I want to handle it personally. The day of Josh's interview arrived quickly. I had made all the arrangements. A conference room booked, coffee brewed, his resume printed out. I was ready. I hadn't seen him in 4 years. But as soon as he walked into the office, I recognized that face instantly. The same one that once looked at me with love and trust, only to vanish when things got hard. But now, his face was older, less confident, and the usual cocky swagger was gone. He was a little thinner, his hair slightly receding, and the expensive suit he wore couldn't hide the fact that he was anxious. "Hi," he said, offering a handshake. "I'm Josh McAllister. I'm really excited about the opportunity to work with your team." I could barely hold back a smile as I shook his hand, but I managed to keep my composure. "Nice to meet you, Josh. Please have a seat." We exchanged pleasantries for a while, talking about the position, his previous work experience, and his skills. He had polished himself up since the last time we spoke. But what struck me the most was how he talked about his career, how he spoke about the challenges he'd faced, how he had learned and grown. He had no idea that the biggest challenge of his life, the one that should have humbled him, was sitting across the table, smiling at him with controlled calm. "Tell me," I said, my voice steady, "why do you want to work here? What makes you think this is the right place for you?" Josh's answer was full of rehearsed lines. "I'm looking for stability and growth. I want to work with an inspiring team and make a real impact. I've been through a lot of personal challenges, but I've learned that success is all about perseverance. And I've definitely persevered. I took a deep breath. A part of me wanted to lash out, to scream at him, to demand an explanation for what he'd done to me all those years ago. But I held it in. I wasn't the woman I once was. I had learned that real strength came not from confrontation, but from control. Well, Josh, I said, leaning forward just a little. I admire your perseverance. We value resilience here at Ash Design Co. It's actually one of our core values. He smiled, clearly pleased by the compliment. He had no idea how much that simple statement meant. We continued with the interview. As the questions went on, I noticed his discomfort grow. It was clear that he wasn't the same confident guy who once dominated every room. His answers became more hesitant, his posture less confident, but he kept talking, not realizing that with each word, with each answer, he was digging himself into a hole. And then came the final question. I just have one last question for you, Josh, I said, my voice now steady with a little hint of irony. Do you think you'll be able to handle a position in a company that values loyalty above all else? Josh's eyes flickered. There it was. The moment he realized, I let it hang in the air for a beat too long. He shifted in his chair, unease creeping into his eyes. Well, he started. I think loyalty is important, but I believe in flexibility, adaptability. Of course, I interrupted, my voice soft but firm. But loyalty, true loyalty, is earned, not given. There was a long silence. And in that silence, I watched as Josh's expression changed. The realization hit him, and his face flushed. I hadn't just been any woman. I had been the woman he abandoned without a second thought. The one whose life he tore apart, only to come crawling back years later. But now, I was in control. Well, Josh, I said finally, thank you for your time. We'll be in touch soon. He stood up, visibly shaken. Thank you, he muttered, his confidence shattered. And then, as he turned to leave, he paused. I saw it. A moment of regret in his eyes. A glimpse of the man he could have been, had he not been so quick to walk away. But by then, it was too late. Good luck, I said softly, my voice calm, almost a whisper. And with that, Josh McAllister left the room. A man who thought he could walk away without consequences. But little did he know, the lesson was just beginning. It didn't take long for me to make the decision. I had played my part. I had watched Josh stumble through the interview. He was uncomfortable, unsure of himself. The man who once thought he was untouchable was now humbled by the woman he had betrayed. But that wasn't enough for me. I wasn't interested in just making him feel bad. That wasn't the point of this whole thing. The real reason I called him in wasn't to expose him, nor was it to give him a taste of what he had done to me. No, it was something much more meaningful than that. I wanted him to face the consequences of his actions, but in a way he would never forget. I wanted him to leave, knowing that it wasn't just about what he did to me. It was about the way he treated every person who cared for him, and how that would haunt him forever. I didn't hire Josh, but I didn't fire him either. Instead, I offered him something even more powerful. 2 weeks later, Josh received an official letter from Ash Design Co. It wasn't an offer. It wasn't even an invitation to another interview. It was a rejection letter, but not just any rejection letter. The letter explained that the position had been filled by another candidate, but it also included a personal note. Josh, I believe that everyone deserves a second chance, even when they haven't earned it. Your resume was impressive, but there's something far more important than skills and experience. It's character. You took a risk by applying to a company you once wronged. I admire that courage. But before you consider asking for another shot, think about how you treat people in your life. Loyalty isn't something that can be bought. It's something you give freely, even when you think no one is watching. Good luck, M. When Josh read that letter, he knew exactly what it meant. He didn't come back, but he didn't need to. I had already given him the greatest gift, the lesson that would stick with him forever. Months passed. The office buzzed with the energy of new projects, fresh ideas, and a growing team at Ash Design Co. I had rebuilt my life in ways I never thought possible. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. Josh never contacted me again, but I knew that letter I sent him had stuck with him. The silence after it spoke volumes. And then one morning, 3 months later, My inbox pinged with a message from an unknown address. It was a forwarded email, Josh's resignation letter. He had left his current job. The email explained that he was stepping away from the corporate world altogether. In the body of the message, he confessed to some deep personal changes. He mentioned therapy, self-reflection, and an apology for the mistakes he made in the past. But then, at the bottom of the email, there was a line that made my breath catch. I've learned the hard way that true success comes from living with integrity, humility, and loyalty. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. I hope that one day you'll be able to forgive me. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. It wasn't the apology I had been waiting for. It wasn't grandiose or filled with excuses. It was just honest. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. I had already let go of the anger and resentment. That was a part of my past I'd long since buried. But now I realized that Josh's journey had led him to the same place I had found after cancer. To a place of accountability and change. For the first time, he understood what it meant to make amends. He had faced the consequences of his actions, and he was trying to make things right. Not with me, but with himself. And in that moment, I knew that I had done what I set out to do. I had not just given him a lesson in loyalty and integrity, I had given myself one too. In the years that followed, I continued to build my agency, expanding into new markets, working with incredible clients, and most importantly, building a company culture that valued loyalty, trust, and kindness above all else. I learned that the true measure of success wasn't in the size of your company, the amount of money you made, or the accolades you earned. It was in the relationships you built along the way, the people you helped grow, and the values you instilled in them. As for Josh, he never came back, and I never saw him again. But the lessons from that chapter of my life remained. And every time I looked at my thriving business, my happy team, and the life I had built from the ground up, I knew I had truly won. Not because I had outsmarted him, not because I had gotten back at him, but because I had learned to build a life worth living, no matter what anyone else did. And that was the greatest revenge of all. So, what's the takeaway from this story? It's simple. The true power doesn't lie in seeking revenge, but in creating your own path. One that's filled with resilience, integrity, and growth. Life will throw challenges your way. People will disappoint you. But what you do with that pain and disappointment is what truly defines you. If you've been through something difficult, don't let it define you in a negative way. Use it as fuel to rise higher than you ever thought possible. Just like I did. And if you're watching this and you feel stuck or hurt by someone's actions, remember this. You have the power to rewrite your story. You have the power to move forward. The best revenge? It's not getting back at them. It's living your best life. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Let me know in the comments if you've had any similar experiences. I'd love to hear how you overcame your own challenges. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay resilient.